Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
It's not just Judd's Hockey Show. It's Judd's Hockey Show coming off a 5-1 win, third consecutive victory for the Wild. This time against the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Take that, Panthers, on to play the Tampa Bay Lightning on Thursday night. They got no chance. This team is a wagon, and this show is a wagon, Judd and AJ. And it's brought to you by our friends, the personal injury law firm of JHS, which is Nicolay Law. Nicolay Law knows that when your loved one gets injured, ordinary life, it can come to a stop and things can get complicated. But there you see Russ Nicolay right there, because he knows that during the time that things get complicated, insurance companies, they're going to pressure you. They don't care if you get better. They don't care if your bills are piling up, and they don't care that you may not be able to work. But Russ and his team at Nicolay Law, they do care. They have seen every play the insurance companies have, and there's a lot of them. They'll make sure to get the compensation you deserve after an accident. So if you've been injured, get Minnesota's local award-winning injury lawyers. Get Nicolay right there coming out of the tunnel to take on the world at US Bank Stadium. Start your path to winning. Victory comes at nicolaylaw.com or give them a call at 1-855-NICOLAY, nicolaylaw.com. That's NICOLET. nicolaylaw.com. All right.
Go back to the opening of the show, because I don't think I've seen you this invested in the Wild. And
it's a wagon.
At least the last calendar year. You are, of course, you are fired up, and I think rightfully so.
You know why I am?
Why is that?
I said this during the game last night in watching the game. John Hines said it post game, something along, I forget the exact words. Okay. But that was one of the most professional performances I've seen from this team in years. I don't mean a pop-up nice game. It was surgical, Age. It was a surgical road win. It didn't feel fluky. It didn't feel like, oh, they're going to let down next game. It was surgical. And here's what I'm excited about. The start's been awesome.
Yeah.
4-0-2, 10 points thus far?
Yes.
But what I'm excited about, Age, and I've got a bunch of notes, like there's a lot to talk about off this game. I felt like this is like John Hines' vision is starting to like really, it's been going, but whole training camp. And he also did, and I love this too, he did the same thing O'Connell did. Now, he was not here a year ago, but they got off to the terrible start, right?
Yes.
They looked, he and John Hines and Guerin looked at the start of this year, 2 home games, 7 road games, ridiculous. And they looked at last year and they said, we got to have a real training camp. We're going to go. We're going to go hard. We're going to go physical. We're going to challenge guys. And we're going to have them prepared when the puck drops for the season. And that's what I felt last night was. Like a culmination of, you were ready for this. It's an arbitrary Tuesday night. Every team is playing because we got the red zone night going.
Frozen frenzy.
Yeah, the frozen frenzy, which I love. And in fact, we can actually discuss the concept because I do love the concept, second year of that. But anyway, I just loved the approach last night. And I feel like training camp sort of started building up to this. And I said to myself, this is what I want. This is a professional team that knows exactly what it has to do. And when you do that, things start to go your way.
I'm treating this team like any somewhat major purchase that I make personally. Like, I don't know about you, Judd, but when I am going to buy something that is going to like take a decent chunk out of my like account, I'm doing research. I'm asking around. I'm reading Yelp reviews. I'm looking at different YouTube videos breaking down the product. So I'm still probably hesitant because I know as soon as I'm fully in on this team, there's no looking back. So I'm still a little hesitant. But this start has been amazing, and last night's win, I think your word, professional. This team was professional. I love when a team gets like a large volume of shots and they pepper the goaltender. You don't need that last night, and they showed it. Sergei Bobrovsky was off his game, and it was quality over quantity. And sometimes, like, I think the Joel Eriksson goal, that was not the highest, like, quality of a shot. But guess what? You realize that the goalie has been bad all night. Just throw it on net. And he beats him. My biggest standout takeaway was, I think it was midway through the second. They're up 3-1. Sam Bennett scores 5-on-5 at the 11:19 marker of the period to cut the lead to 2. Makes it a 3-1 game. 5-on-5 play. Less than 3 minutes later, Matt Zuccarello gets his 4th of the year. I think in a lot of these games working up, my biggest gripe, and I talked about this, I think last week with you and Jesse, this team was backing off the gas pedal when they take these leads. They kind of like, okay, we're set and we're comfortable. Let's get complacent here. They dictated the second after that goal was scored. No, we're not giving any footholds.
Correct.
We're sticking with it. This is our game and we're running it.
Correct.
And from there on out, I mean, they dominated the next like 5 to 10 minutes in terms of like overall play. Obviously, Florida had chances here and there, but for the sake of it, the Wild looked like a professional hockey team in a opposing team's barn against the defending Stanley Cup champions. This looks like a professional hockey team. And if they keep playing like this, the notion that I had preseason that this would be the death of them, this 7-game road trip, they're looking like they're going to be a great team on the road. I can only imagine how good, hopefully, they are once they finally get back to Minnesota. Right now, they're playing very good hockey.
I think the thing I appreciated as well as last night was sustainable. Yeah. Like last night was nobody over their skis. It's like, he ain't going to do that again. I mean, from the Kaprizov Zuccarello combination, don't look now. And again, everyone has to continue to work hard. Mm-hmm. So I'm with you. I'm not buying in completely. But don't look now, but Matt Boldy could be a star. Matt Boldy is doing things with the puck and without, but to your Bobrovsky point, he was not good.
No.
But let's talk about the first 2 goals, okay? Because I think there was a reason he wasn't good. The first goal, the Kaprizov feed to Rossi out front. First of all, since we talked about Rossi, it's like the first couple games, it's like, dude, you're on the first line. Look like you are. Mm-hmm. He has played really well. I wonder if he got a talking to, because he is like, and again, doesn't show up in, oh man, he's scoring a ton of points. He's scoring points, but it shows up in the fact that Kaprizov play doesn't work, and it's a marvelous play without Rossi planting his butt in front of the net where you're going to get hammered and tipping that puck home. And Bobrovsky, I mean, that would have been a very tough save. The second goal is the Johansson goal. Now, first of all, Marcus Johansson last night, you worked. See what happens when you work? But how about the Boldy setup? And that was not just an offensive zone. Boldy started working in the neutral. How about that goal? And again, now the Panthers defenseman screwed the pooch. That was not a Bob let the goal in, but the Panthers defenseman is the guy that got beat. But again, my excitement stems from Boldy did the work, and Boldy's the skilled guy. Mm-hmm. Johansson buried the puck. But I mean, those 2 goals right there, Age, which came at 11:40 and 12:02 of the first period, set the wheels in motion for Bob to have a bad night. And neither one of those goals was like a terrible goal on him. But to go back to what you said, you took control there, and it was very clear you took control and you maintained that control. But the Kaprizov pass on the Rossi goal, which was a shot pass, and the Kaprizov pass on the Zuccarello goal, and the Boldy play on the Johansson goal, that's just impressive. Like those are your players who you're like, we need to see that. You're seeing it.
I mean, it's so much more fun to watch this team when you have more than one guy who can elevate players on their line. Last year, for the bulk of the season, it was only Kaprizov who was that first line. Whoever he's with, he's elevating their game, and they're producing every single shift. Matt Boldy has now also assumed that role, and he's doing that. And I still skeptical, I would say, on Marcus Johansson. He has been showing a lot better play so far this season, so I'll give him credit for that. I just want to see it continue. Yeah, fire is ablaze, fully ablaze for him.
It has
but that Boldy play is the exact perfect realization of everything that Bill Guerin and John Hines have talked about all offseason, where they want to develop that physical defensive part of his game as well, because that play starts in their own zone, and then they win the puck back, they gain possession, and he bodies the guy off the puck. But then it's the transition to go from defense to offense through the neutral zone, and he throws an unbelievable upper body fake. I couldn't remember who it was. Was it Griffin Reinhardt? Maybe, I'm not exactly sure.
And the defenseman checked out.
Almost faked me off the couch.
Okay,
I'm
out.
Almost faked me off the couch. But he gets to the corner, and then the vision where we've already seen this in his game to feed Johansson for the goal. God, it's so much fun to have him playing at this level, and I really think this is like here to stay. I know we talked about it, and this was the nervous part about coming into the season, is if it's going to carry over. I think we're fully in. This is Matt Boldy, the realization of all of the work, and now all of the gripe that people maybe were throwing about that contract extension. By the end of the season, that's going to look like a steal. Like that is a budget superstar in the making, and I think it's only going to continue and be better.
And this is what you need. I mean, for 49 sheets, this is what you need. Like, this should be him. He's got this talent. This is why it drives you crazy when he doesn't show it.
Yeah.
And also, credit to Hines. So, two things. One is credit to him for going through training camp, and we talked about, and this guy's out now, but, the Ryan Hartman, oh my God, he's on the first line, really? And then we're like, why not give Rossi that chance? And then Hines came to the conclusion, and he's done that. And that was sort of our, hey, play Rossi there. And since the first, and he's been great. But the other thing, and this is a credit to him, was, I think we all rightfully so said that Boldy, Ek, Kaprizov line was pretty damn good. And I think Hines' contention was, but that puts all of our eggs in one basket. Let's have two lines. And that's worked out. And it's partially worked out because Zuccarello now has, count them, 4 goals. He didn't score his 4th goal till November 12th of last year. He has 4 goals. Kaprizov is not scoring goals, but he's so good he doesn't need to because his assists have been magnificent. Like I'm not watching Kirill and saying he's not going to score goals. He'll score goals. But Zuccarello shooting, which I think was a real problem. Yeah. I think Zuccarello trying to pass. Zuccarello's a good passer, but let's just get this out there. Everything Kirill does, he's better than Matt's at. So Matt should shoot. So like there's no thing, like Matt Zuccarello is not a better passer than Kirill. Kirill sees the ice better. Zuccarello can make some nice passes, but Matt Zuccarello, and his whole thing of before, well, I just don't shoot that much. It's like, dude, that's not an option. You have to shoot. And now he is. Look what we got. No one really cares who scores those goals. You just want, and that play that Zuccarello scored on, the setup from Kirill was beyond magnificent. It's, I mean, that's a Gretzky-like pass.
Yeah.
So, these are the things that we need to see that I personally didn't think we would. That does change my opinion, but it all starts from a foundation of also blocking shots, not taking penalties, playing smart, and a lot of that has to be a credit to what John Hines has brought now with a full training camp.
Credit to John Hines, because clearly there has been a vision, and he maybe he pitched that to Bill Guerin last season, which is why you had such a quick turnover of Dean gone, hiring made. But granted, I think he's probably been benefited by the key players there staying for the most part healthy. Obviously, Jared Spurgeon out right now. There's still a lot of clouds there. We don't exactly know. But up front, I think the past couple seasons, you've had to deal with either Kirill hurt, recovering from being hurt, or in this so far this season, you had the broken nose for Ek that sidelined him for, I think, 1 game only. But still, I mean, when you miss those pieces, it's it takes a toll on the overall plan. But right now, he's got the chess pieces in place, and so far, each move has been great. The line combinations have looked good. I think we did see an emergence from the third line a little bit last night. I noticed them more. Sometimes bad, but also sometimes good. The fourth line, you saw them working again. Jacob Lauko and Freddie Gaudreau both had some pretty solid shifts that I took notice of. But it's just the top 2 lines are really carrying the burden, and it's so refreshing to not have to have one single line out there hoping and praying that they can just will the team to a victory.
It's so refreshing to see this team play a professional game. Like that's my gripe has been too many guys check out too much. 2 things. One is Ek missed 2 games, right? Because he missed the game.
Oh, it was 2 games, yeah.
In Winnipeg, and then they didn't fly him to St. Louis. Can I make a case that we are misidentifying, and I'm guessing that the time on ice wouldn't back me up, but can I make a case that we are misidentifying the third and fourth lines, and that the actual third line last night was Ogren, Lokal,
Lauko.
and Hustadinov, and that the fourth line was really Trenin, Gaudreau, who is, I believe, the third guy, because Hustadinov, if I'm not mistaken, tried that line. Hartman, who's out now, been out for a couple of games, and now Gaudreau last night, and Foligno on the wing. Last night, that line combined to block 13 shots. They had 5 shots. They had no points, but that's okay. No, I'm sorry. I backtracked for a second. They had 3 block shots. They had 13 hits. They had 5 shots. I thought that line played very much like a really good fourth line last night. I thought that line, because they worked hard. The hits, to me, the 13 hits, age, are the absolute key, because the 13 hits are, like, that line has not had enough hits. And so I actually think that in some ways, because the fourth line has speed, like the fourth line, I think has probably more ability to generate offense as currently constructed. But with Gaudreau there, I mean, that is Foligno, worker. Gaudreau, worker. Trenin, slow worker. But if you're going to give me 3 block shots, 5 shots on goal, and 13 hits, I'll take that. That's fine.
Yeah. And in terms of time on ice for lines here, just because you kind of brought it up, the Kaprizov, Rossi, Zuccarello line had, according to my friends at moneypuck.com, 12 minutes and 21 seconds of time on ice. Boldy, Eriksson, Johansson had 11:44. Foligno, Gaudreau, Trenin had 11:20, and Ogren, Husnadinov, Lauko had 7:31. That being said, in terms of on ice expected goals against, defensive lockdown by Foligno and Gaudreau, Trenin, 0.172 over what would be like a 60-minute sample size. They were very solid defensively last night, whereas the Ogren, Husnadinov, Lauko one, it looks like they took a little more chances, but more so were just based on like underlying stuff, reckless hockey, but I think was effective reckless, if that makes sense, because they were, that line, given the speed of Lauko,
right?
Frankly, Husnadinov, who I think has looked a little smoother now in his skating as it's progressed through the first 5 or so games, and Ogren there now, they have the ability and the explosiveness to go from their own zone, where more than likely they're starting, like a lot of the time, to get into the offensive zone. And then it depends on kind of the role too, because is John Hines telling them, hey, that's great, get up, set up down there, but then if you realize we now have possession, let's maybe get a top line out there. Let's get Kaprizov, Rossi, and Zuccarello out there so they start their shift with possession in the offensive zone or something along those lines in transition. But I think that's something interesting to keep an eye on here moving forward, is like, obviously they're listed as the third line, but it's how they're playing maybe is
correct.
Yeah.
Well, and I thought that, because I think he started the season on the fourth line on the wing. I thought Gaudreau was really, I thought he was the best fit, including Hartman so far, with Trenin and Foligno. I love that fit, and he played well, and he got some scoring chances. Probably on that line, he probably got, the 2 best scoring chances last night. So I thought that was a really, really good sign, though, because no matter what, you had 4 lines and you sort of liked what you got, or really liked in some cases what you got from each of them. There didn't seem to be inconsistencies.
And really, really quick, only because we brought this up kind of yesterday with Jesse about defensive pairings, that third pairing of Merrill and Chisholm, they had 12 minutes recorded time on ice together yesterday. 0.031 on ice expected goals against. They didn't do a lot offensively. I just want to make that clear. They helped out facilitate the play. But that is exactly the type of day at the office I want for a pairing like that. I don't need you to be superstars. I just need you to not make mistakes. And they went out there and they played very sound, conservative defense. That's just fine. Stay in position. Don't pinch on the wall if you don't need to. Back up. We saw this with Chisholm, I think. It was like 5-7 minutes into the game. He went to hold the puck at the blue line, and he kind of had it for a second, but then he's like, okay, we're going to back off. And he willingly brought it back out to neutral zone to regroup because they were able to then come back with numbers for a better zone entry. Don't force it. And that's just smart third pairing defensive hockey, right? So just to kind of harp on that point from yesterday.
Yeah, don't make what potentially catastrophic mistakes, especially when you don't have to. You don't have to prove to the coaches that you're really good potentially offensively on the blue line. When you're playing with a guy like John Merrill, you guys are out there to prevent goals, not try and score them. If you score a goal, that's great. So we are now among the most time that a team has spent without trailing to start a season all time. The Wild has now advanced to number 2 all time. The 1969-70 Bruins, 457-21. The 2024-25 Wild, 365-51. The Wild is 4-0-2. It's their best start since the 2008-2009 season. And they are the second team in the history of the league to not trail in, again, the stat is regulation, because they've lost games at the end in overtime through 6 games. If they can, and what's left now? 3 games, right? At Tampa Bay on Thursday. I think Philadelphia is left. Pittsburgh is left. And that's going to obviously be Flower's start. I'm guessing Flower might start tomorrow, and then you'll throw Gus back in there on the weekend. But yeah, you are correct in surmising that my enthusiasm for what I've seen is high, based on the fact, like, I feel we haven't consistently seen this forever.
Yeah, tomorrow night at Tampa Bay, Saturday at Philadelphia, Tuesday at Pittsburgh, before finally returning home as the calendar flips on the Friday the 1st against Tampa Bay again. And I think it has been noted that it will be Fleury at Tampa, and then he'll get Saturday off to then be in the net between
Gus at noon in Philadelphia, and then
it'll be Flower against the Penguins.
Flower. Yes, which will be highly emotionally charged because it's going to be his last game there. A couple more things.
Yeah.
On Gustavsson. So I think it was Ryan Carter brought this up on the telecast last night. And by the way, I think he has improved. I think Carter's been great. Like, I have criticized Bally's and now FanDuel, but I think that Ryan is really insightful now and really good. But he brought up the fact, and he's right, that, from the first day that Gustavsson talked to the media in training camp, he's much more serious, workman-like. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And Gus has always been sort of a fun guy. Like he's not, all goalies are weird, but he's always been sort of after games, pretty relaxed and stuff. And I think he's still a good guy, but I love the workman-like thing. He had the contract last year. He didn't show up in great shape. It cost him. I mean, he was second in the entire league in goals against and save percentage 2 years ago, and then was off the charts in a bad way. He basically was in the 30s in both in 2023-24. If the price is Gus might not be as much fun, but he's going to be more stoic, and that's going to help him play well. He's a goaltender. I don't care. Whatever it is, though, here's what impresses me. The Wild's played well enough that, and this is a good thing, they're not putting their goaltender in harm's way to get a bunch of high danger chances. They're blocking shots. They're playing, I think, pretty defensively sound. And so Gustavsson gets some tough shots, but they're not continual. But when he gets them, he stops them. And more importantly to me, it's the routine, going back to Dubnyk. How many times did we see weird shots, a puck popped up, something that just should have been stopped? It didn't get stopped. And it felt like that sort of extended to last year with Flower and Gus. Feels like Gustavsson is now making almost every single save. And the goal that he gave up last night was a gorgeous play. He had no chance. But he's making the saves. One, some really good saves. But two, probably more importantly, he's making the routine saves look routine, which has not been a constant, I don't think, for this team nearly enough.
My biggest thing for goalies is make the stops that, one, you're expected to. I don't want to see, like, for instance, the Eriksson Ek goal last night. That should probably be a save. God, like 98 out of 100 times.
Oh yeah,
There's not a pass option. It's a relatively not great angle.
5 gloves.
That should be a shot. That should be a stop. But you also need to make a couple that you probably shouldn't, like just whether it's lucky or skill or whatever.
Yep.
I understand you're going to get beat because last night he got beat on a very pretty play. It was well executed. There's not much you can do. Sometimes you're hung out to dry either by just good play or your defense has a lapse in it. But he's been overperforming, and to go off of that, right now he's sitting at a 1.4 goals against average. His expected goals against average based on shots attempted against him should be 2.53. He's actually saved 5.7 more goals than what have been actually scored on him. He is keeping the Wild in games, and so I'm already, I think, eating crow on him. He's been playing so much better than I anticipated him to. I kind of expected the same slow start that we've seen. He's been really, really good. And to your point, if that means we don't get a fun, weird but wild, like he's on the bus type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't need any commercial shoots. You know what? If Gus's whole time at the rink is he shows up, says hello to people, goes to the locker room, goes to the ice, goes back to the locker room, goes to the parking lot, and goes home, that is just fine with me. I don't need the extracurriculars if he's going to be playing like this. If he's going to be the racehorse with blinders, where it's like my one job is to just stop the puck and there's none of this other extracurriculars, that is just fine. I think I can live with less Gustavsson personality in my life if it means he's playing at this level. And
the pessimism that followed him, not to mention his team into the season, was totally justified. Totally justified. I'm pretty certain Bill Guerin tried to trade him. I'm pretty certain he couldn't get a thing for him. So this is if he's going to now come back and shove it up our what's for questioning him, he should. Good for him. And this team, last thing, Frozen Frenzy, Tuesday night, 2 NBA games to open the season. It's ESPN's, and I think it's once a year. It's their answer to the Red Zone. So they've got games on, but they've also got a studio show where they're going from game to game to game. Every team plays. Now, the trade-off is because of that, there was only one game on Monday, and there's only one game on Wednesday. What are your thoughts on the concept?
I actually really like it because, I love that type of everybody's playing. I need better execution, though. Why is it on a Tuesday? And I like having that kind of bounce around. Blah, blah. I don't need 16 games happening at once, Judd. I need a staggered, we're going to have 4 start at like noon on a Saturday.
I got a suggestion from a friend saying exactly that. Start it on a Saturday afternoon and then stagger them through.
Yeah, and then you go 2 o'clock and then you go 4 o'clock, so that you always have games happening. I just similar to like an NFL Sunday, like when the Vikings played in England. I think we were all up at about 8:30, and then you watched football for 15 hours straight. And people are willing to do that. Hockey fans will do the same thing. You're going to sit down, you're going to turn it on, you're going to see the ESPN hockey crew, NHL crew bounce around 4 games. And hockey's like Red Zone is interesting because it's a lot of games happening, but also football at times can either have just terrible matchups or there's not a lot happening. You can just have hockey is continuous action. So you really only need the 4 games. You can bounce around and then stagger it. So you have like essentially noon till like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock that night with games, with action. That's my biggest critique, but I love the concept because I enjoy a hockey marathon like that. There needs to be something to help promote the game. And if some casual non-hockey fan is like, what's this all about? I think that might rope them in to see that continuous action. Hey, maybe this is the sport for me.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple things here. One is, I do like the staggered starts for the event itself. So like you don't have, because one problem with the sport a lot of times is, a slew of games start at 7:05 Central, and then a slew of games start, so I like the staggering. I think the Saturday thing this time of year, and I'm a little bit surprised they did it in October, but anyway, I think the Saturday thing this time of year obviously is college football. Like they're not going to put, but then of course you could come back and say, well, do it in January. I would say February, but this year the league's basically going to shut down for the Four Nations tournament. But yeah, I think I think your idea is a great one. Like if you did it after college football was done, and you did it on a Saturday, which is pretty much a hockey day, and you started it at noon and you staggered games all day long, that would make it more fun. And I think with 32 teams, 16 games, and a lot of them are going on at the same time, it gets to be a lot. Because you're right about football. Football has natural flows and patterns. Yeah. And it's a part of hockey I love. It doesn't necessarily, like it just goes crazy. So I love the idea. I love the concept. It could be tweaked, but I'm never going to scoff at a red zone idea, because I have found that starting with the actual Scott Hansen red zone, I think the red zone thing, the whip around thing, is one of the coolest things, which actually probably in fairness started with the NCAA men's basketball tournament, because but I love it, but I tend to agree with you. I think my fix would be, or if there's a fix, I think it would be Saturday, more in the winter, and again, on your couch, January, February, most years, start games at like 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern, and then carry it through.
That could be like because New Year's Day traditionally has been the Winter Classic. A week or two after that, like January is your specialty hockey event time. You have that big game. You have a couple outdoor games probably because they love the stadium series now. And then on a random Saturday when there's not a lot of college football, maybe you have like one staggered bowl game at night that you might have to compete with. But for the most part, that slate's going to be essentially open. That's when it's the and also to call it the frozen frenzy. Well, I think yesterday it was like 70 something degrees here. Doesn't really, I don't know.
Good point. No, but they're on.
This is the start of something that is a great idea.
It feels like a lot of times since they got rights back, ESPN has not been on the right track. It feels like they just acquired the rights to show something, especially on the Plus. This is one where I think it's like, okay, this is really, really cool. Like it's a cool idea. So I don't mean to discredit it because I like it. And, TNT's done some great stuff. Their studio show's fantastic. It feels like ESPN's dragged there. Like I'm still not sure. Their studio show's okay. It's not as good. But I think that there's a lot to like there. And I think, the more games that you could possibly dip in on and actually watch portions of would be cool. All right, sir, we are done. Again, the Wild, what a performance. 5-1, the defending Stanley Cup champions, no match. We'll probably do a show. We might do a show if you have time on Friday.
Depends on the time.
Okay, well, we'll check on times. And we got the Vikings on Thursday's a busy night.
That's right.
We got the Wild and Lightning, I think it's 6 something Central. The Vikings at 7 something. And then the Wolves play the Kings at like 9 or something. So anyway, we'll talk. We'll talk. But Judd's Hockey Show, especially at the rate that this team is going, will be back soon because there is a lot to talk about. He's AJ. I'm Judd. See you later.